记得小时候清明节，我必须跟父母去扫墓，公墓很大，要找阿妈的墓碑也需要找20分钟，走得累死了。我想以后我去世后，子孙可以到骨灰安置所找我，只需搭电梯到2楼，多么容易啊！
At its peak, Chua Chu Kang Cemetery was huge. At around 300 hectares, it was about the size of 560 football fields. Today, just over 200 hectares of that remain standing, with about a third of its original space cleared for future developments. 300 hectares isn't a lot, especially when you consider Singapore's total land size of just under 73,000 hectares. So why do we have to excavate graves to make space for urban planning?
Singapore is both a city and a country. A city may not be too concerned for spaces for, let's say, reservoir, right? But as a country, we need to safeguard space for military use. We need to safeguard space for water resources. All these compelling needs need to be settled. And what's more, we still have to take care of housing.
But life isn't a game of Animal Crossing. You can't just conjure land out of thin air. By exhuming graves in cemeteries, we will be able to clear up a lot of land for urban planning. It does sound extreme, but we have done it before with resounding success.
Ngee Ann City used to be an old cemetery called Tai San Ting, right? And then Bishan is a Pi San Ting. And of course, today these two sites have been repurposed and redeveloped, right? Tai San Ting into today's Ngee Ann City. For Bishan, Pi San Ting has a much bigger location than the current Pi San Ting, which is almost the entire estate of Bishan New Town. Mr. Lincolnstein has a very famous quote, right? Do you want me to look after your dead grandparents, referring to cemetery grounds, or do you want me to look after your grandchildren?
Once these graves are exhumed, families of the deceased then make different arrangements for the remains. Most people would choose to cremate the remains and store the ashes in a columbarium where each urn gets a lot. They are then stacked up in neat rows and columns, not unlike the HDB flats that we live in now. Some choose to scatter ashes into the sea, while others, like the people in the Muslim community, bury their loved ones in space-saving crypts due to religious requirements. For newer graves, the new burial policy of 1998 makes sure that a 15-year internment period is enforced across all religions. In fast-growing Singapore, cemeteries serve as a reminder for us to slow down and to acknowledge our history. But to ensure that Singapore develops sustainably and remains livable for future generations, we need to have an integrated urban planning and development process which balances environmental, social, and economic needs. All of this done with the relevant government agencies and stakeholders to consider every possible outcome and its repercussions. Excavating graves for future developments might not be a popular decision, but it's definitely a pragmatic one that we would have to make.